Welcome back, Glaive Hunters. I hope you guys have been enjoying Sunbreak. I finally got a chance to dabble with Blast and Rise, and since we know Blast powdered Kintex are really cool now, and Magnamalo is the flagship of the game, I thought it'd be really fun to make some builds for Blast. In this video, I have two builds, a Blast build for early endgame that focuses more on the Blast damage and augments both Kinsect Blast damage and Weapon Blast damage. The second Blast build utilizes MR100 gear and has a balance of raw damage and blast damage, making it a great option for almost all monsters as long as they have some ailment to blast. Like many of my builds, you can interchange the weapons for each set. A reminder as well that these mixed sets are not meta and that there are multiple ways to build them based on your charms, but these two builds meet the requirement of a good build that can solo elders on average in less than 12 minutes, which is my usual baseline for the average player build. I have snippets of gameplay in this video, but these builds really fit any playstyle. So with that, let's grab a wire bug and head on out. In case you aren't aware, how blast damage works in Rise is that when you attack a monster as you normally would, over time blast affliction just kind of builds up on the monster until it maxes out and then it explodes, dealing damage. The weaker the monsters are to blast, the faster the blast buildup occurs and the more damage they take per explosion. Every time you proc the blast damage, each one subsequently after takes longer and longer to build up. That's why it's crucial that you make sure that the monsters have a weaker resistance to blast damage. A good amount of procs to get in a hunt is anywhere between 8 to 11 procs. If you're getting less than that, you're not really getting good damage out of the skill. So, taking a look at the first build here, we are utilizing the Staff of Lartus. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, don't worry about it. The glaive has the highest blast damage of 46, with an okay raw of 320, no affinity, but it does have some defense bonus. Jewel slots are great with a 2-1-1 slots and thankfully a level 3 rampage slot. Whoever at Capcom worked on this blade knew the exact use of it by adding that level 3 slot. I'll just say it right here, the jewel that you want on this is the Teostra Soul Jewel, which adds extra blast damage to both your glaive and your Kinsect. Kinsect level is also maxed at level 15, so this is an excellent option to use a powdered Kinsect with. The extra damage you get from the powder vortex plus the blast damage will have a huge impact for powder glaive gamers. Now looking at the armor, we have the Luna Helm, the Archfiend chest, Kaiser Teo braces, the Espinos coils, and the Ropessa greaves. Skills wise, we have 3 challenger jewels to max out agitator. This build does focus a bit on blast, so you can see I don't have attack boost here, so we have to gain our attack from other skills. Agitator provides plus 20 attack when monsters are enraged, and if you've seen my previous video, I break down why Agitator is a good skill in Sunbreak, but in short, it's just much easier to proc and therefore a little bit more reliable in Sunbreak. We also have Chain Crit on the chest, which provides plus 5 attack on any initial hit and then plus 10 after 5 more hits. And that remains until you basically stop attacking for 2 seconds. So that's it for the raw damage attack skills. Without attack boost, we had to make sure our affinity was really high. We have Critical Eye 5 embedded in the build, giving us 25% affinity. Weakness Exploit provides an extra 50% on weak parts, and Agitator adds 15% itself when monsters are enraged, giving us a total of 90% affinity. So, 90% of our hits on weak spots will then be boosted by 40% with critical boost, rounding out the base raw damage of this glaive. Now I do want to point out here that the charm I use is the one that makes this build work, and it's a little bit tougher to get. It is a Wex 2 with blast damage and a 3 slot. It is a bit of a cracked charm, so if you don't have this, I recommend dropping 1 protective polish or 1 blast jewel depending on what you need. Blast attack jewel basically enhances the build-up rate of the blast proc. I have a level 3 here with the charm again and jewels added, but level 2 is okay as well because we also have the skill Teostra's Blessing on the legs, which adds 5% blast buildup. So if you have to drop one of them to make sure you have max Wex, that is more important because you gotta treat blast damage kinda like the cherry on top of your raw. You have all this raw damage and the blast procs just happen once in a while, and those are just kinda like that extra damage to either break apart or maybe get a flinch, or just that extra damage to get a topple. The last part of this build, since attack boost has been removed, for myself at least I preferred maintaining purple sharpness. The blade itself has very little purple, so what I had to do was max out protective polish by adding 2 more jewels on the coils and legs, and I have speed sharpening 3 from 3 grinder jewels. Honestly, this has been very helpful for me to maintain the purple. That 39% multiplier is just a little bit of extra damage that really helps to balance the blade out since you don't have attack boost. With speed sharpening 3, it only takes one sharpen animation to finish, so you can sneak this sharpen in on any big attacks the monster does, or if a monster is just getting knocked, then you can go in for some damage. It's very quick to fit in and will maintain your damage uptime overall in a hunt rather than breaking down to white and blue. So overall, very balanced build, great damage, good blast proccing, and also you got the sharpening skills in there to maintain your damage uptime. Now, let's take a look at the MR100 blast build. So this one utilizes the Endgame monster blade, the scorned Magnamalo's Devil's Halberd. This blade has a little more purple sharpness than the previous one, higher raw damage, but only about half as much blast damage. Again, no affinity, but 2 level 2 slots and a level 2 rampage deco. Level 14 Kinsec, which is still really good for a powdered Kinsec, so overall, great blade. The armor that I use for this build is the Auroracanth Helm, Archfiend Chest, Luna Braces, Sinister Grudge Coils, which is the Scorned Magnamalo Coils, and the Kaiser Greaves. The charm I use is the same as the previous build, a Wex 2 charm with a blast attack and 1 level 3 slot. Skills wise, we do have max agitator inherent on the build for the extra 20 plus attack and 15% affinity when monsters are enraged. We also have the Mail of Hellfire on the coils. Now this skill does reduce your defense a bit, so it does make the build a little bit more risky, but it adds plus 15 attack when you use the red scroll. So all your raw damage switch skills should be on the red scroll. Finally, we also have Chain Crit on the chest, which again adds plus 5 attack on the initial hit and then plus 10 after 5 hits. So this is where our raw damage comes from. I've also added 1 handicraft jewel to enhance the purple sharpness of this build. This 1 handicraft combined with master touch on this build is definitely enough to maintain that consistent purple sharpness if you are efficient at hitting weak zones. Just like the previous build, Critical Eye is at level 5 for 25% affinity, Agitator provides that extra 15, and we bring Wex again, which brings us to 90%. So again, 90% of our hits on weak zones will be boosted by 40% thanks to the maxed out critical boost. As I mentioned before, blast damage is kind of your cherry on top, which is why I focus on the raw and critical hits a lot more with these builds. You are more than welcome to go the other way. Instead of focusing on critical, you can focus on attack, especially if you're an aerial glaive user. Since I'm mostly a ground glaive user, I focus on the critical because I can focus those weak points very precisely and make sure I'm getting as many critical hits as possible. But yeah, we still have a good amount of blast damage and blast attacks. The blast attack skill is maxed out, and with the help of Tio's Blessing, we do max out the blast buildup, helping us to get 9 to 11 blast procs per hunt. Now, just like I mentioned for the first build, if you do not have this charm, you should drop 1 blast attack jewel or the handicraft jewel to make sure you have max weakness exploit. Now, in addition to master touch, I also fit in 3 speed sharpening on this build. It may not be as necessary as the previous build, but again, if you attempt to headlock monsters and keep them in one region, it will be very helpful to maintain that purple sharpness. Now, the last thing I want to mention about these builds is that they are agitator builds, so they aren't ideal for solo anomaly hunts. If you are hunting anomaly monsters in groups, it's a little bit better since 4 hunters can proc anomaly monsters back into an enraged state pretty quickly, so that maintains your damage. You also have 1 coalescence on the build that gives you plus 12 attack anytime you clear an ailment, which includes Blood Blight. So getting hit by a single attack from an anomaly monster inflicts you with Blood Blight, and this ailment clears pretty quickly over time in a hunt, giving you 1 minute of extra damage. It's not very consistent for normal hunts, so I would not rely on this too much. And that's about it for the blast builds, guys. These are a ton of fun, and they have been my go-to for the monsters that are weak to blast, including Malzeno, Chameleos, Kushala 100%, Shogun, and a few others. Again, these probably aren't speedrunner material, but they definitely are above average for blast weak monsters and give you that great damage while still having fun with explosions all around. So thank you for joining, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you guys use this or if you guys have other suggestions. I hope you guys enjoyed these builds, and I'll see you next time. Take care, stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.